We are living the authentic life with my dear friend, Paul-David Van Atta. Van Atta.
Like attaboy.
Attaboy. Danae Cangelosi Chramosta. I am so used to Danae, whatever. I'm like, okay.
Chramosta,
Chramosta, all of it.
I haven't heard the Chramosta.
Yeah, that's a good one. But welcome.
Thank you.
I was saying earlier, most of the time I have women that come on the podcast, but you are so deeply entrenched with the women of this city and of the world that I wanted you to share your story. You have created so many incredible events around the world, but specifically, I got to know you through working with the Mission of Yahweh, and I think I was there in the beginning when you created the Women of Substance. Yes,
yeah, that's right.
And the Women's Home. So we have come together many years to help raise funds and awareness for women who are in crisis and trying to overcome domestic abuse or substance abuse or challenges and get them to a safe place. And you do it in such a meaningful way, and you create events that people want to go to.
I hope so. Yeah.
And that's hard.
It is hard. It's very hard.
I want to talk a little bit about the magic of that, and just welcome you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, we had planned this earlier. But you were vacationing and you're...
All right. I'm not going to carry any guilt on that.
You should not.
I just turned 59 and I
love
deserve it.
Okay, and so we were talking about, the podcast. I love to bring people together who are living their best life and who have come alive. And I feel like that's what you do. And this term called Ikigai, when you figure out what you love to do, what you're good at, what the world needs, and you can make it a better place. And then sometimes we can get paid for that.
Yes.
And then you reach this state of flow. And I think that part of the allure of you is your lifestyle, that you live among the people you're hosting events with, you understand who they are, and so you can speak to them and what is meaningful to them.
Well, I think that, first of all, you have to have passion for whatever you do.
Yes.
I know that your daughter is a math genius, so I love the fact that you created this whole kind of theory of algebra to come up with what your purpose is.
Yes.
It is about all of that. And it's a mutation. And sometimes you're just living it and you don't know where it's headed, but you do feel like you're going in the right direction. And then you flash back 20 years and you realize that it did all have a purpose, and maybe it wasn't so conscious, but there was a divine intervention that led you in that direction. And mine has always been to do good things. Events, it started with hotels. I was a theater major in college. Before that, I was a professional equestrian. So I've had many incarnations, if you will. But what really struck the chord with me was being able to bring the theater into events and create motivational type components to events that I didn't see in other events that I had attended. So that's why I stayed with the hotel business for so long. And good grief, 4 U.S. presidents, the Super Bowl. I mean, I've done some of the biggest things people in my career can do. But the gratification really lies in creating something that puts good into the world and changes the lives of others. So that's what brings me joy. To monetize that is hard.
Yes, and I love that theatrical side of it, because I do feel like the space we're in creates a lot of emotion just in that.
Yes.
And there's also the balance of when you're raising money for a charity, you don't want it to be too extravagant sometimes.
True.
Because people want the money to go to the charity. So it's a balance.
It's a fine line.
All of that. And I'm sure people tell you what they like and don't like.
All the time. And some things I can control, but if I'm contracted by somebody to do their event, I don't have full control of the event.
Right.
Some people get long-winded and people aren't there to be educated. You know, if they're there, they know what they're supporting, and they've given of their treasures to be there. And they've hired a babysitter, and the wife had to have a nice gown, because you know how that is.
Yes.
And the men are just usually bored to tears.
Yes.
So I always keep that at the forefront of my mind when I'm planning something, is how do we keep everybody engaged? That's hard to do. It's very hard to do.
But I feel like there's also a rhythm to how much time, and that's the biggest factor of an event going well, is how much time you spend talking and how much time you spend entertaining.
That's right.
And telling the story in a
and giving
way.
people time to just enjoy their table guests.
Yes,
you know,
because you work so hard to get this synergy.
That's right.
Of people at each event.
And then you get 5 minutes unless you're talking through the program, right?
And then that's difficult. All right, so let's talk about the upcoming event, Women of Substance.
Women of Substance, eighth year, honoring 12 spectacular women as Women of Substance. And then we have our Lifetime of Substance, Trini Mendenhall, who's done so much for this city. And then we have Jacqueline Bostick as our Spirit of Substance. And you might know the last one. We have a Youth of Substance honoree, Bella Chramosta. Chramosta, Van Atta. Yeah. So, yeah, we're really excited. And this is the 8th year. So we're reaching 100 women that we've honored through this. And it's kind of remained somewhat of a sorority because the women stay engaged. They come and they celebrate women each year, but they also continue to support the charities. And that's the thing that I like to create, is if we introduce a new charity to this group of women and they stay engaged, then I feel like I've given more than just the assets from the event. I've given them a framework and a donor base that they can reach out to that will continually support. And that's really where the value is.
And then Woman of Substance, how did you create the title?
Well, so I have a long friendship with Barbara Taylor Bradford that wrote the book, A Woman of Substance. She and her husband, Bob, who has passed, were just dear friends of mine. And it started very kind of randomly. She came in to speak for an event at the request of her friend Ernie Manous. And I met her. It was Taping for the Blind is what it was called then.
Okay.
And my father's half-brother was blind, and he used to donate a lot to blind charities. And he asked me to continue that in his absence, and I did. So I went in. I used to do a lot of radio voiceovers and that type of thing. You do have
a radio voice.
Oh, do I? Yes, but a radio face, probably. You got a great face for radio, kid.
I know, right? They're like, thanks.
I know.
No, you are a looker, and you're always fashionable.
Oh, please. Not like you. Of course, I don't have a store that can also be my closet, but
that was part of what I created.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
I loved it, and I found a way to live it.
And you wear it well. You really do. And so does your husband. I mean, I can't imagine any couple doing this better than you'll do. And it's always exciting, and you're very generous too. Very, very generous with what you do.
Well, I loved your quote when you said, and I don't know what specific way you said it, but for those who are given much, much is expected.
That's right, yeah.
And I grew up with that mentality. And what was interesting, it sounds like you grew up with that being in your family too, with your father giving to the blind that you mentioned.
Well, my father couldn't give much because he had to give to 5 kids, and he was a senior master sergeant, active duty is where he ended his military career, but his Air Force career. So after that, I mean, it was lean. We lived a very lean life, but we had no idea that we were like probably middle class, maybe lower even middle class.
How did you ride equestrian?
It was very, very hard. I saved my lawnmower money, and I bought a pony. And it had a blue eye and a brown eye, and nobody could ride it because it was just a crazy little crappy pony. And I just wanted to own a horse. So I bought it with my own money, and then my parents found out that I had this horse, and horses aren't cheap.
No.
But learning to ride on this pony, I could ride basically anything. So I manifested this. I do believe that if you can see yourself somewhere, you can get there.
Oh my gosh.
I've
we
always
had
believed
this
that.
conversation manifesting things. And so we'll just yell out sometimes, I need $1 million. I want $1 million.
Yes. But we go through it like that.
Exactly. We would. I know that would. No, I'm in $1 billion.
Yeah, $1 billion. I mean,
but it is so true. Like, people think it gives me chills, but I believe that if you want it enough and you are focused enough,
if you can see yourself there,
it will come to you. Because, like, I had a friend who is an incredible artist, Elizabeth Waggett, and she's part of the UN Lions Fund. And she told me about going to the UN, and I said, I'm going to go to the UN, either with you or with someone else.
Did you go?
I went, and I went with Amy Pierce this year.
What?
We did an event to fight trafficking, and I was at the UN, and I thought, oh my God, that was just a year.
I went with Joanne King Herring.
Oh, well, she's a person to go with.
Yeah, she was honored at something in New York, and I flew in because I love her. And then we went on the tour.
Yes.
It's incredible, right? And the art is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, you could...
And we weren't in the
main... You have to be in there the whole time. Did you go to the General Assembly?
We did not go to the General Assembly, and that's another thing on my list to do. But going back to that, I think, and even my Uber driver last night, like, I love talking to people, like, about where they, like, what's your real job?
My partner hates it when I talk to the Uber driver.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That is so funny. Well, sometimes on honeymooning, I realized that Rob wanted to be friends with everyone at the table around us. I was like, dude, honeymoon, me, all the attention on me.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, now after years of being together, I'm like, talk to everybody else. Don't talk to me. I'm going to be on my phone over here.
I love it. I know. Yeah.
But he was talking about being an immigrant and what his perception is, and that he, feeling the opportunities as opposed to looking at and he said, what my expectation is I had one outfit that was nice and I had to wash it on Saturday to wear on Sunday. And other people have a different impression of what success is or whatever. It's about what you're looking at and how you see it. Rob used to pay his neighbor to mow the lawn so he could go to coin shows, because he would make more money at a coin show, and he could take that money and pay the neighbor. And his stepdad would get so mad, and his mom would say, he's doing it. He's getting it done. And he's making money doing it. Why are you mad? He's like, because he needs to do it.
No,
she's like,
he doesn't. No, he doesn't need to do it. He just needs to get it done.
Exactly.
There's a difference. Yeah. You know what? We all get 24 hours in a day. How you spend it is entirely up to you.
Yes.
There was a time when I was really, really ambitious. But going back to seeing yourself somewhere and then how you get there.
Yes.
I think a lot of that is just divine intervention. If you're a person of faith, you've got that to rely on. But really, it's the integrity of your spirit, is how much you want to put into getting where you see yourself. It's not just going to happen for you. It's not just luck. Right? It's not just, and I hate that term, what is it? The lottery of the womb, where you're born into privilege and all of that. No, I think that can even be detrimental. But if you've got your eye on the prize and you see yourself, for instance, I was just lost in horses. I mean, the magic of them. And my introduction to them was when I was 5 years old. I found the stable on the Air Force Base, because we always went to this lake on the Air Force Base, and down the street was a stable, and I think I followed the smell. I think I was just drawn to the smell of horse manure or whatever. I mean, it was just in my spirit.
Yes.
And I think the third day I was there, I got kicked so hard in the leg that I had a horseshoe imprint on my thigh.
And that would have stopped a lot of people.
And it just made me go back. I wanted more. Yeah. And so I started writing. And then as a kid, I would clean stalls to have writing lessons.
Yep.
And then when we moved off the Air Force Base, when my dad retired, it was hard to find a place to ride.
Sure.
But I found it, but it was expensive. So I mowed yards and did all that type of stuff to have the money to do that. And then I got so good at it that people started hiring me to ride for them. And then I remember my first horse show, I was running barrels. And I don't know if you know what that is. That's like rodeos kind of stuff, right?
I wanted to be a barrel racer for one moment until I rode the horse and tried to go around the barrel, and I decided it wasn't for me.
That's funny though. But
I was like, look at how cute those girls are.
God,
I want to be a barrel racer.
If you had started that, you would have been like in like Chanel or
exactly. I would have been the most couture barrel racer ever.
You would have. But then that evolved into different styles of riding. So I ride everything.
Love it.
Western, saddle seat, hunt seat, over fences, on the flat. I even trained a side saddle horse, so I can ride side saddle.
Wow.
So all of that went, and my parents really did support it to the best of their ability.
Right.
Fortunately, it became kind of a business for me, and I started giving riding lessons, so it was some income for somebody of my age, right? When I graduated high school, I left town the next day. I couldn't wait to get out of there. And I went to train on a horse farm. I'd shown horses for Kenny Rogers. I won the national championship in 1983 as a junior exhibitor. And that's normally a spot that a kid would have a family of means behind them.
Yes.
But it was on OPM. Do you know what OPM is?
No.
Other people's money.
Oh, I love
the kids got talent. They supported me. They encouraged me, and I would ride their horses, and I was really, really good. And then the bottom fell out of the horse market, and I got back into the theater, which was a second love of mine. My oldest brother was so talented, and I remember there's 9 years between us, and he's since passed of COVID, but I was just always in awe of him. He was a great singer. He was on stage, and I wanted to do that. And it's very intimidating, right?
Yes.
But I finally did my first show. I was Mr. Bumble in Oliver, and I sang "Boy for Sale," and I sang it well. But I looked on the video. I looked scared as I was white as a sheep. But that was my first one, and my oldest brother had performed in Pippin, and auditions came out for Pippin, and I auditioned, and of course I grew up on the music, so I knew every song.
Right, because you've been around it.
I got it. I was Pippin, and then that was the theater bug, and I want to get back to the theater so badly. But yeah, I've been in over 30 productions, and really miss that part of my life. So moving forward, then, of course, you have to make a living. Okay, I didn't see that in horses anymore, and I didn't see it in the theater for me. I'm a horrible dancer, can't dance a step. So I'm not a triple threat by any means. But I can sing and I can act, and I can do enough of that. And, kind directors will say, it's okay, Paul-David, relax. They'll dance around you and make you look good. Just give us jazz hands at the end, So,
I love a good jazz hand. It takes up a lot of
You can get through a lot of stuff with a good jazz hand,
yes.
For sure. But then I discovered hotel. And I came back from Valdosta State University, and I told my parents, I said, I wanted to live with y'all for 6 months. They were thrilled because they were empty nesters by that time. So it was nice to have some noise around the house. And I took a job at a hotel. I worked on the front desk from 7 to 3, and then I came back and worked in the restaurant from 5 till close.
Wow.
So and that was back before you could be double job coded, so you could do that. Now you can't do that. You can work 40 hours in one position. You couldn't hold 2 jobs and work like that. I think they call it like child labor or something now. But I loved it.
But you have Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers. He says you're an expert when you have 10,000 hours. Think of all the things you have 10,000 hours in. You are so committed to the journey, and I think people forget that's part of success.
It's
all
true.
that time like doing the work.
So I think that if you apply that 10,000 hours to something, though, I think that's why I'm so sympathetic as well.
And empathetic.
Because
you, even if it's not what you've lived, you see that investment and you value it.
I've got over 10,000 hours of caring, of crying, of, all of those things, all of those dark things, right?
Yes.
And I used to think that, gosh, why can't I be stronger? Why am I so, Yeah,
it's one of your superpowers.
And then I realized as I got older, as you get older, you learn a lot. So
right.
Everybody quit trying to learn so much about your life. It will evolve, and
it'll make sense. And if your North Star is clear,
yes.
If your belief and what is your belief system? If it's faith, if it's the universe, if it's nature, if it what we all have to be
What grounds us,
grounded
yeah.
by something.
Well, I never want to be a person that stops caring.
Yes.
But I do tend to care too much, and I get too deeply involved in things. And I think you're the same way. I've seen you. I've seen you in action.
Yes, I get so emotionally connected to anything. I have tried to learn to detach a little bit because I feel like
you won't do it.
I know. Well, and I feel like that's part of the anger, or the, like, if you're passionate, you want it to go so well, and if it doesn't, it's a failure. And it's like, no,
it's not.
It's not a failure. It's just not exactly what you imagine. So I feel like that's what I was saying earlier. I'm trying to be more zen, that I have these. I found if you develop a clear image, you can get it. But then the clear image doesn't always happen exactly the way you created it.
You gotta
so
trust it.
You gotta still go,
you gotta trust
that's enough. That's good. And in fact, Rob and I had that conversation last night. He was talking about, he feels like somebody else was talking about business. He's like, you're just going and you're just not making a lot of money. And I'm like, I just want you to feel the success. But it is hard sometimes, right?
Yes,
because we equate success with money. And it's not always that equitable to what you did here, you get this. And it's hard sometimes.
I've made a lot of money, and then I've been check to check, and it doesn't really change your life that much. It really doesn't, unless they're going to put you out on the street.
But it can change this.
It does change this. It
and
absolutely
you've got
does.
to find a way through that.
Yes.
Because it's such a long.
Do you know what, though? The crowd that we hang out in, most of them are very, very wealthy and affluent and well-traveled and all those things. I think what maybe brings us back and grounds us is the people that we serve.
Oh, absolutely.
We might look at our peers and say, wow, what a life, what a, all of that. But how do you think that the kids that we help look at us? They look at us the same way. So whatever that gap is, whatever your aspiration is, you identify with somebody that you want to be more like, you want to emulate. But teaching somebody to emulate for the good things rather than just the financial things is something. Somebody that doesn't know where their next meal is coming from, doesn't know where they're going to sleep, has substance abuse issues, is being trafficked. These are the things you and I both work to overcome for our community, right? That's tough work, but they look at us the same way. So aspirations aren't always so astronomical. Most of them are just survival and the comforts of just the things that we take for granted. And that's very humbling. So that's where I try to put my work. Yeah.
I feel like that's why Bella has committed so much at such a young age to giving back, is because in her days of the worst physical pain and the worst emotional pain, it would give her relativity to see a kid at revision who didn't have a place to sleep and didn't have someone to help tutor them and didn't know where their next meal was coming, relative to her feeling like, I'm bullied at school, I don't have kids to sit with at Episcopal, I have these mean things being said. And then she goes there and she's like, okay, I got this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very grounding. But she didn't just come up with that herself. She's had some great examples with her parents to think on those levels. I'm really thrilled to honor her this year. I think that's just so awesome and well-deserving. Do you know the movie The Blind Side?
Yes.
Okay, well, yes. I'm obsessed with that movie because there are so many touch points that like really grab me over and over again. I can watch it a million times. Do you remember when she sets up the bed for him and she's like, and he says, I've never had one before. And she goes, what, your own room? And he says, no, a bed. Come on. And that's all around us right here in this community.
Oh, I know. We went to Children's Charity this weekend, and
that was crazy. That was crazy.
6.2 million one night.
Laura Ward is just a phenomenon. She is.
But you can give a bed to a child for $150. Like, giving a bed to a child, it's just it. But that's what the guys at Revision were saying, is these kids are homeless. I'm like, I didn't think of them. So I don't even know if you give them a bed, where do they put the bed?
Do you know, well, that's a really good point. And housing is a big issue.
Yes. So they work with Search and some other there's a lot of collaboration, right?
Well, there is, but you're talking about a neighborhood that is ridden with gangs and drugs and sex trafficking. So when these kids find revision through, like, for instance, the soccer team.
Yeah.
Okay, so, like the soccer team brings these kids off the streets, and then they have a team, and they have peers, and they're talking amongst each other, and they don't want to go back out on the streets. They don't want to be lured in by all of this poison that is all around them. They want a way out. And Revision gives them that platform and a safe space to go. Their drop-in center is always overpopulated. But then the team holds each other accountable to, no, you're not going to do that. No, you're not getting in the gang. No, you're not going to sell drugs. But Revision is really about taking kids out of the juvenile justice system. It's all about second chances. And oh my God, if I had been caught doing some of the,
right?
Yeah, well, yeah. And our guy doing the testimonial, actually, he's such a great break dancer, and he teaches dance at Revision, and he was a client of Revision.
Wow.
So,
and I love that
he went to the Olympics. He competed in the Olympics. He placed 6th.
Game changing.
Also, the soccer team. Some of these kids are so good at soccer. They have gotten college scholarships for this program.
And then they come back and work there.
That's right.
So it's area code. Tell me if I'm saying this right. The area code with the most refugees in Houston.
Yep.
And thus they're most likely or at risk to be lured into gangs and trafficking.
For sure. And a lot of these kids, hopefully Revision is helping them to break the chain, the succession of their family, because a lot of their parents are incarcerated. And think about that, being a kid and not having, parental support.
So that's why they're homeless.
Or if you have parental support, it's from somebody that's drug addicted or sex trafficked or whatever.
Yeah. They're not emotionally available.
They're not.
Because they've been so traumatized. They're using. Right. And that's the other thing I've learned about trafficking is so many of the victims have so much trauma from the sexual abuse that they become addicts.
That's right.
And because I used to look at them and say they chose it, and even if they chose to be a dancer or chose to initially step in, you will not choose to remain in a place that you're raped multiple times by different people.
Correct.
No one would choose that life.
And if you were in that life, you would probably have to be on something to get through it. Yes. And then when you come out of that, if you ever do break away from it, last year we had one of our honorees was Kathy Givens.
Oh, she's
you remember her?
Yes.
Yep.
I've heard her speak. She was a victim of trafficking who's now an advocate.
That's right. And so she came out of that and went to the other side, and she could have just moved on with life, but she was like, no, I need to give my testimony. And she does it over and over again, and it's painful every time. But, that's a hero. To me, that's a woman of substance, and that's why I wanted to honor her, because that really takes grit. That really takes, I don't want this happening to anybody else, and I'm going to stand before you and say that I was sex trafficked for years. And, I mean, come on. It's
such
really
vulnerability.
It's so brave. It's so brave.
So brave. Yeah, it's truly incredible. So tell us, who is going to be the speaker this year?
So, I have a surprise entertainer. I've got Kenneth Gale singing a heartstring song that I love called Thankful. I love the song. It's a Josh Groban song. And then we're having Jeffro, who is our break dancer that went to the Olympics.
Good.
He's giving the testimonial.
Awesome.
And then the rest of the program is just populated because, we have lots of women and we want to give them, read their bios and have them celebrated. And, it's just a feel-good thing. And I think that this event really kind of embraces the title of Barbara Taylor Bradford's book, A Woman of Substance. What does it take? I've actually had women approach me now because the event's become so popular. How do I become a woman of substance? And you know what I say? Just be one.
Aww.
Just be one. your time will come. We can't honor everybody, though we try. I can't add one more honor to keep things, to where we get out at 1:30. But this event, it just manifested to do such great things. After this year, we will have raised more than $4 million.
Incredible.
Yeah, for homeless, for mostly for women, but also for children. And I wanted to move it around, so I don't want people to get confused. But this has never been intended to stay in one place for more than 3 years. And
so this is the second year for revision?
This is the second year for revision.
So you have one more year for revision.
Yes,
but I feel like another great organizer or a great fundraiser is Debbie Fastari, which she would do with Uninote.
Yes.
That was a great
She did
fun
a great
event.
job with that, yes.
And she would choose different charities each year, but she changed every year.
Yeah.
So I feel like I guess you two are the only real ones that are doing something
That are bouncing things around. And, she retired
and she retired, absolutely.
Yeah,
well, they were just honored this week for the Italian cultural community.
And she was a woman of substance last year.
That's right.
That's right, yeah.
I remember now.
And you've been a woman of substance.
I have, but mine was during COVID.
Oh.
So we didn't have our big day.
I know.
But it was still...
But you were at Tony's with a group of ladies. I remember that because I called. I called over there. That was such a weird time, wasn't it?
Well, and what I did that day was we had it being... the video through there, but I invited a group of maybe 20 women, and each of them I said why I loved them and what made them special to me.
That's awesome.
And we went around and I didn't know I was going to do that till I got there, so I didn't even think about it. It was just kind of off the cuff. And the women there left and felt so connected because they knew something intimate about someone else other than just that. They'd seen them at a party or they're friends with my friend.
Right.
They knew what their passion project was. They knew what they were, something about their family or what was important to them. And so it was really kind of changed the way I hosted events because I think that I call it going deep quick. I like to meet someone and get past that. Certainly I'm like, oh my God, love your pants. Tell me about the earrings. Where'd you get the bag? But then tell me about what's happening in your life and what you're really what's happening.
What are you all about? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what? We don't take the time to do that. And it's really, I think it's very important to have your core group as well. It's impossible to have more than, I'd say 6 or 8 really good friends because you add your family on top of that and you don't have the time. So a lot of acquaintances, my circle has shrunk very much over the years because I've realized that you can't be 100% for everybody. So you need your strong inner circle, right? And I've been taught that from some of the grand dames that I've honored over the years. Warner Roberts is one. Laura Ward is another. In fact, Laura Ward just had she gave me the sweetest call. And she said, I've watched you for years walk among the thorns. It's time that you walk among the roses.
Oh.
And I thought, oh my God, coming from you, that just really meant a lot to me.
Wow.
But I have worked hard. The hotel business it is not for the faint of heart. Let me just tell you.
Especially you were a mile from the Pentagon on 9/11.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you knew that. Yeah.
It was in your bio. That's the other cool thing I love is I learn things about people I know well.
Yeah.
That you were there and you had to overcome that in a city with people you cared about. And then we have COVID here and no events and you're an event planner. What does that mean for your business?
I'm still recovering from that.
I'm sure it's just truly been, and then all the hurricanes and the tornadoes.
And back to COVID, my partner lost his father very early on in the COVID process. And then you
said you lost your brother.
I lost 2 brothers, yeah.
And so that's such an emotion. And we were all just ripped of so much that we thought defined us and had to figure out what mattered the most and what our futures look like and who was going to be in our futures. And I thought it was really pivotal time.
I've also, it's so odd that you bring up 9/11 because living in D.C., living a mile from the Pentagon, and running a hotel that actually housed the airline crews, because the hotel that I worked at, that I managed then, was the Hilton McLean in Tyson's Corner. So we had British Airways, and we had a lot of the United and Delta, several airlines that stayed with us. So we had one group that had just checked in, and we had rooms that we would flip just for the airline crews. So they would spend half the day, and then we'd clean, and they'd go back. So this group that had just been grounded that came in to rest before they go back to Dulles Airport, then the other group goes out to get on their flights. So the people that came in were getting news of this, and their friends they just saw in the lobby as they were passing each other on their shifts are now in the air. So we're watching these airline crews as the towers crumble, and they're still not knowing the fate of their friends that are in the air. Yeah, it was a crazy, crazy time. It was a crazy time. And then after that, we had the sniper. So when I got the call, I was hand selected to open the Hilton Americas here. I was like, yeah, I'm ready to leave. And then I got here. I moved here July 1st of 2003. And I said, don't take anything else off the truck. I was soaking wet. I was like, this is Africa hot. This is crazy. And I've always lived in hot and humid
but
places.
You're like, this is a whole nother level.
Yeah. It was crazy. But I've loved Houston. I've been here now 20 years. It's crazy.
You are an adopted Houstonian.
I am a Houstonian, yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Well, thank you for joining us. I've learned so much more about you.
I've learned so much more about you too over the years, and I tell you, I celebrate everything you do. You're involved in so much, and you and your husband are so generous, and it's really beautiful to see you passing the torch and watch your daughter come up with the same type of values and the desire to play it forward. So yeah, good job, Mom.
Thank you. I think there was a quote by Jackie Kennedy that said something about, you can do everything in life, but don't bungle raising your children, or something like that. And I was like, well, at least I'm doing okay on that part.
You're doing great on that, right?
But some days she doesn't like me. Believe me,
well, that's just
tells
normal.
me.
I mean, come on, teenagers, right?
Yeah, this week she disinvited me to therapy. She's like, I'm good without you. You don't need to come to therapy with me
I
anymore.
agree with her. No.
And I love that. Like, that she doesn't want me there, and she's doing
an
it
adult.
on her own.
She's like
She's getting ready
sorting
to
out
fly.
her own
Yes.
shop, right?
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I love you, Donay. Thank you. This has been
Love
fun.
you. Yes. All right, guys. We are living the authentic life. Let us know if you want to join us at Women of Substance. There's still a few seats left, and you can join us in the auction. You've got some great things to auction
Go
off.
to www.houstonrevision.com/Women of Substance.
Hello about the watch listing.
Oh, yes. We have a Rolex,
Yes.
a vintage Rolex.
Yes, the
being
vintage
auctioned.
Contessa in times past has generously donated a Rolex for the second year.
Yes.
So that will be part of the auction, and there are some other incredible things, including an original painting by Sneha Merchant.
Oh.
Yes.
She's quite a
Oh,
talented
and I
artist.
don't know if y'all noticed, you can see it better on the website than you can with me just holding up this program, but these are Warhol-style portraits. They're called Giddings holes, and they're done by the talented team over at Giddings. And so that's part of the auction. You can have 2 portraits made, and that'll be part of the live auction as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so husband and wife, it's perfect for that. You've already got yours, so you can have your husband and your daughter done.
Yes, nice. All right. Thank you.
So yeah, fun stuff.
All right. Have a great week, everybody. Ciao.
Ciao.